welcome back to the Resistance broadcast. I'm John. Thank you for joining us on this Monday, September 26th. That means it's officially fall, which means we are due for a State of Star Wars episode, fall edition, but that is not today. Today, we are actually going to be talking about our thoughts on the latest Star Wars news, but also we're pulling in one of our typical Thursday segments because as of now, the Thursday shows are on a little bit of a hiatus because we're doing TRB live every Wednesday night to talk about that day's particular episode of Andor. So we're doing that through, November. I believe it goes right up until Thanksgiving, Andor.
Something like
so
that, yeah.
it's pretty crazy that we're going to be doing that. But also, just so everybody knows, just like with all of our Thursday episodes, the TRB live episodes about Andor will hit all of your podcast feeds on Thursday morning as well. So we are always here to take care of you. And doing that with me, James and Lacey. So how are you guys doing? We had a great show last week on TRB Live. And,
Yes.
I know sometimes we feel like, oh, is it going to be rusty because it's been a few months? But it didn't really feel that way. It felt pretty good. And I had a great time. And I know everyone in the chat seemed to. And how'd you guys feel to get back into the swing of things doing the live shows?
One thing I could say about the live episode, maybe why it was easy to get back into the swing of things, is because we got 3 episodes to start with. So there was no downtime possible. Like we were always like, we need to talk about the next thing and the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So there was never any point where we felt like we were awkwardly stretching. It was more like, I wish we could talk more about this. I'm going to say this one thing and then we have to move on, It was a good flow and pacing.
Yeah, I just love interacting with people in the chat. I think that's my favorite part about doing the live show because it's like someone's there listening because you put these podcasts out and you're like, who's listening? So it's nice to see them like actually interacting with us and giving us some insight of what their experience and their thoughts are. That's my favorite part.
Yeah, it's good to be doing those and knowing that we have a good stretch ahead of us to do them is pretty cool. And it seems like at least what's been going on in the news that we're going to talk about in a minute, that both critics and fans seem to be digging this show. So I don't know that we have anything else to throw at you. So why don't we kick off this show here with our first segment of the day, James? Resistance Report, baby.
It's the Resistance.
All right, guys. Resistance Report this week is going to kick off with a little bit of Andor news. And I don't really know if this is so much news as it is kind of an observation. But with Andor having just released, we wanted to take a look at how people were generally feeling about the show. And so the Rotten Tomatoes scores are in. Now, as of recording, the episode has come out, so we're kind of looking at that. But when the article was originally written, it was the early articles. It was like, hey, this is news because the reviews, the people reviewing it who have seen it are starting to rate, and we were kind of getting a little bit of a vibe of what we might see from the show. And now the normal, like the average person has seen the show and they're able to fill in with that. But to take a look at the critics score, it's currently sitting at 89%, and the audience score is sitting at 79%, both being, above Rotten. Like that's a fairly average score for theirs, with the critics rating being a little bit higher. And just to add to the context too, these particular scores are not to compare, but like they are better in both regards. Over Obi-Wan and the Book of Boba Fett, but it is not as good as Mandalorian, which is sitting at 93 and 92% audience rating. And from a little bit of my own personal perspective on that, it seems like that is a big high expectations, low expectations sort of thing. I think people went into Boba Fett and Obi-Wan with high expectations and were underwhelmed. And I think that as Andor, they're like, I don't know who this guy is, but I'll watch it. And I think it's a little bit more like, oh, yeah, that was all right. That was good. I liked Rogue One, kind of thing. So maybe a little bit of lowered expectations going into Andor ultimately kind of raises the bar a little bit. But let's start with you, Lacey. What are your thoughts on the tomato meter for Andor?
It's not surprising to me. I mean, from the moment we heard news trickling in from press and media that went to screenings or the premiere, we heard that people loved it. We got the same words, gritty, slow burn, different than any other Star Wars we've seen. So we knew it was going to be a positive score on their end. I'm happy to see that mostly fans are enjoying the series as well. I understand the viewpoint you just had, James. I don't know if I agree completely. I think that maybe Andor has more of a different vibe, and that's why people like it, because it is different, whereas Mandalorian has this kind of whimsical Star Wars feel to it, and then you're going into Book of Boba Fett and Obi-Wan with characters that have that kind of legacy that go with them. So I agree with you on the sense of high expectation, low expectation. Like, people didn't know we didn't know what to expect from Mandalorian.
I didn't include Mandalorian in my thought, though.
No, that's fine. It's tough, I hate to be that person that compares Andor to other shows and movies, just because it's like everything is its own thing. It has its own story, own characters, own feel, own look, director, production, etc., writing. I think if you're comparing Andor to The Mandalorian, it's more of like, this is a completely different feel. Like I said, like a completely different, like, I don't know, it's more crime thriller adult, I would say. Like, I'm not going to be watching this
It's a different genre.
Right. I'm not going to be watching this show with my child anytime soon. I'll say that. Whereas Mandalorian, I could probably get away with showing her that probably sooner rather than later, because of Grogu, and she already likes Grogu and plays with the toy at home, so it's just different. But I'm digging it so far, and I'm so glad that people are too. I'm hoping that continues as we continue on through the series, because we still have a long stretch of episodes left.
John, is there anything that sticks out to you about the Rotten Tomato score? Maybe in comparison to other shows, but maybe not.
I expected the critic score to be very high, because critics are usually a little harsh on Star Wars and don't treat it as, high
Serious,
art.
yeah.
Yeah. And, George Lucas was always a bit of an outsider, and he wasn't, a fan of being part of guilds and that sort of thing. And that doesn't usually lend itself to a lot of praise from award shows or critics. But this has that, not on purpose, but it has that sort of pretentious artistic air to it. And the way they're promoting it and talking about how it's adult and serious and all that stuff lends itself to that. So I expected the critic score to be high. The fan score, I wasn't sure, because of the two bowls. The one bowl is the diehard fans who make Rogue One trend every other day on the internet, and who love that movie.
I got $1 for every time someone tweeted Rogue One is trending, so
yeah. So those are the people that will run through walls for this series. So I expected high praise from them, but the general audiences, I wasn't sure about. But at the same time, I don't know that a general audience member, like say my brother or somebody at you see at the deli or whatever, is going to be like, I got to go on this website and rate this show that I just saw because it was on Disney Plus. So I think because of that, the first bowl gets more of the attention in terms of who's going to be writing reviews from a fan perspective. So I'm not surprised that it's around that, 80 mark. And it's, fresh across the board. Also, Metacritic had it at, I believe, 74, 75, which is also generally favorable. So it's just, but overall, it's good to see Star Wars, a new Star Wars product being liked by fans. I think to add to what Lacey was saying about, like, I don't know if this was the angle you were talking about, Lacey, but that preciousness of those legacy characters, the ones that those guys who were 10 when, like, Empire Strikes Back came out, and they had the Obi-Wan figure, they had a Boba Fett figure, and these became so precious to them. The ruining of my childhood stuff, you don't get that with new characters. So you can't ruin Cassian Andor because he's only existed for 5 years.
Yeah, there's this ownership of those other characters.
Yeah, so that is like Mando. I mean, yeah, Luke's in there, Ahsoka's in there, and stuff like that. I believe, like, I feel like Mando and Andor are sort of free of that, and I think that's why that side of fandom who tends to be old school and not like a lot of the new stuff uh seem to at least accept those more than the Obi-Wan or Boba Fett stuff.
I
So
think there's
I think
also
And I think that
a
that's
side.
what I'm saying, by the way, is like just the high expectations of going into Obi-Wan and Boba Fett, like the legacy of those characters. That's why I wasn't including
expectations plus
Mandalorian.
legacy, yeah.
Yeah, and like the Mandalorian one is just kind of interesting because like yes, it was high expectations because it was the first Disney show and all this, but it was also like I don't know what a Mandalorian is. You know, there was a lot that went into that, and I think
Yeah.
wherever you were at that reveal of Baby Yoda, I think just took everybody by surprise in the sense of like whether you were high or low, it was better than what you thought, and so then everybody went into that show positively.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think there's also a piece here with The Mandalorian where it evened the playing field, so to speak. Like everybody was at the same level of knowledge with The Mandalorian. No one came into that being like, I know every single journey from Legends that The Mandalorian went on, and I did this, and I know this. Every single Star Wars fan was new and didn't need any preconceived notions or ownership or anything because everybody got knocked down to, oh, this is completely new. And I think The Mandalorian came with a lot of new fans that only like Star Wars for The Mandalorian and didn't get into anything else because they felt like, one, there's so much that they'd have to know to get into the other Star Wars stuff. And two, maybe they did get in because of Grogu, which, going off of this kind of story of how well it's being received, I was very surprised at big trades running articles about how The Mandalorian isn't as serious as this other series, or like comparing it in a negative light compared to Andor. And I just hope that casual fans aren't looking at that being like, oh, well, I must not be a good fan if I don't see a Grogu in this show.
Star Wars finally blank. Like, shut up.
Yeah, it's just,
Like,
it's too much. I think everybody, this falls back into, everybody has their own Star Wars experience. And that's what makes Star Wars so great and the fandom so great, is because everybody likes certain things. So I'm just pumped that people are excited about Star Wars again. I'll take any period of time in the fandom where everybody's collectively excited. I will bask in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think where you're seeing that is like that small group of people, and I want to say like I'm included in that, but like when you say what I'm going to say, you'll understand what I'm talking about. Is how many people have seen like Rebels come out and they go, I mean, it's cool, but it's not designed for me. You know, it's clearly aimed at this. Or they see, you know, the Young Jedi Academy. It's like, well, this is for like kindergartners.
Or Resistance. Resistance was even more slapsticky.
That's true. And like, and even people who were into Clone Wars and Rebels, they saw Resistance and they're like, this isn't even on that level. It seems like it's trying to play to younger. It's like, I feel like Andor has been the first show that's felt like it's
mature,
the most mature.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's like, so I think there's an audience of people saying, finally one for me, where the kids go, that one's not intended for me. This piece of Star Wars property is not for me.
Or it's more like the parents are going, this is not intended for you.
I mean, I get that, but like usually it's the one person saying that's not for me, and finally you have the person that it is for saying, well, that one's not for me.
So,
you know,
it's interesting you say that, because I went the extra mile. And I asked people who have kids of age, like my son's too young to watch Star Wars still, in my opinion. At 4, like he could watch it, but processing and understanding it, not yet. He's getting there. But you know, people who have like 7-year-olds and through 12-year-olds or whatever. And I was, I reach out to my sister and other people I know who have kids in that age range, and I'm like, who I know love Star Wars, and I'm like, so what they think? And a lot of it I got was, they were kind of bored from it. They didn't really understand it. And that makes sense. That should be a surprise to nobody. Picture a 7-year-old kid trying to sit down and watch Andor, those 3 episodes. They're going in the other room.
The moral layers here are just.
I know.
It's like
I had the baby in the room when I was watching the first episode of Andor, and she was just totally like, playing, looking around. And then as soon as B2 Emo came on screen, she was locked in the whole time. And then as soon as he left the screen, she's back to like looking around.
But
right.
It's interesting you say that, though, and not to contradict that, too, but even B2 Emo doesn't feel like a character that's like, well, BB, it's like one for the kids, or something like that.
No.
He even that character seems like boring, and sort of like I don't have the cool model droid or whatever. I've got this square box droid. It's just,
Yeah, he doesn't have any like cool
rolling
movements or
no curves. He's
rockets,
not rolling on a ball.
yeah.
There's not some sort of like magnetic cool feature. It literally just looks like you couldn't
rolling
have
trash
a more
can.
basic droid almost. Yeah.
Well, he's like an accordion almost because
Yeah.
he like stacks into himself.
That's the coolest part is there is sort of like 3 layers that kind of
He's got like an
uncapes himself,
exoskeleton inside of
Yeah.
or outside of.
but
even
still,
when-
yeah.
Like when he talks and stuff, like I didn't really think about this on TRB Live, but he's kind of like Cassian's like Alfred.
Yeah, he stutters and he's just like checking in.
He's got the British voice. He's there to like help him with things that he forgot about or remind him
a
about
Jarvis
things.
character
gives him
sort of.
bandages.
Jarvis
yeah.
or like Batman's Alfred, So, but yeah, I mean, it's good to see, anytime a new Star Wars product comes out or show or whatever that seems to be generally positively viewed. It's a good thing because I don't know if the folks know, but Kathleen Kennedy involved with the project. So
Mm-hmm. Well, someone who is involved in the project is Tony Gilroy, and he is confirming
yeah.
that Andor Season 2, this was with an interview with The Wrap, he's confirming that Andor Season 2 is not actually going to be a 2023 release. So if you're thinking you get a season of a show 2022, the next season would be 2023. He's actually saying we're not even going to begin to start shooting until the fall of that year. So that lines up with more of a this time 2024. That sort of lines up, I think, with what we saw from the first season of Book of Boba Fett. Or no, sorry, Mandalorian, right? It was 2 years in between, wasn't it?
So Mandalorian did 2019 and 2020.
Okay. Oh, then I'm
Yeah.
thinking 2 years in between 2 and 3.
Yeah, so
Well,
they
it's gonna
start
be
shooting
a
in
little over 2
November of
years,
this
yeah.
year for Andor Season 2, and then they're shooting until August,
Yeah.
and then it's a year of post-production.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's sort of like that's what I was thinking of. Mandalorian sort of took the break, and Book of Boba Fett was like that 3rd season, but Mandalorian itself is taking like sort of a 2-year break.
Yeah, so next year we're looking at Bad Batch, Mando, Ahsoka, what there's
Skeleton
another-
Crew?
Oh, Skeleton Crew, and then 2024 we're looking at Acolyte and Andor Season 2.
Acolyte started before Skeleton Crew, though, didn't it?
It's
I
just
think
starting
Acolyte's-
shooting
They're
now.
they're building their sets now.
Yeah.
Okay.
They start shooting next month, I think.
And Skeleton Crew
Um,
has already been shooting?
Yeah, because
Okay,
they showed
yeah.
pictures
They
at
started
D23.
in
Yep.
July,
Yep.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Which is funny because that
Um,
show got announced so much later than everything else, and it's just fast tracked to the front of the line over Lando,
Yes.
over everything else.
Yeah,
Do
I
we
mean,
know
we
where-
heard
is
about
that- is
Grammar
that when
Rodeo, but then all of a sudden it was like, here's the show, and we're filming this month,
but is that one shooting in the volume in SoCal, or is that
Skeleton Crew is in the UK.
Oh, that's UK also.
Yeah,
is
I
it
was
in the
gonna
volume
say,
though?
definitely there
Sets.
has been leaks of like sets. Yeah,
Oh, okay. All right.
but all these
Well,
shows have some sets. But Lacey's probably right; it's probably not volume.
I think they're learning that if they shoot in the UK, they can get away with less production photos leaking than here.
Yeah,
So, yeah, to give my thoughts on this one, I know there was that Fugazi report that came out saying Tony Gilroy signed some deal.
Oh,
and had, like,
yeah.
the
That he was like,
the minute I saw it, I was like, "There's no way that's true," and we didn't, report on it or anything like that. And then I guess the site who reported it had to report a retraction.
Mhm.
So I'll tell you this: if you're going to report about something about Tony Gilroy, you better be correct, because he's definitely the type of guy like James Gunn to probably be like, nope.
He did. In this interview with The Wrap, he did say, like, this is me sticking around for 2 years.
But this was before that report came
Oh,
out.
really? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So, so with him saying this here, I don't want to speculate on whether or not he's done with Star Wars after Andor. I would think that he is.
But maybe he has such a good time he isn't.
Yeah, I don't know with this guy, because I know he doesn't love Star Wars, but I know he liked wanting to tell this story, so I'm not really sure. But I like that, again, he's very candid. He doesn't like do the whole behind the secret walls in the vaults of Lucasfilm thing. He says, like, yep, here's the deal. We're start shooting here. It's probably not gonna be out next year, so don't even look for it. We're shooting through August. I have 2 more years to go. By the end of this thing, I'm doing like over 20 hours of Star Wars, so I am a player in the game. I don't need to be here any longer than that. And I think that's cool. And that doesn't mean he's saying he's done, or that he's continuing. It's just he's very matter of fact about it. I like that they're taking their time with this series, especially they have to do, another set of 12 episodes, but not just doing another set of 12 episodes. They have to do 12 episodes and probably do a lot of stylistic changes in the quarter chunks, because each of those quarter chunks is representing a year in the timeline. So you're looking at like maybe 4 times the amount of costumes, different looks to characters.
Oh, I
more
forgot
characters
about that.
in general.
So episode 4 to episode 5 is how much of 4 years?
So season 1 is 1 year.
Yeah, season 1 is all 1 year. That doesn't start till the second season, where
Season
3
2
block chunks are years, are the remaining
so
4 years.
Got it.
Season 2, it's going to be 1 through 3, 4 through 6, 7 through 9, 10 through 12 are each going to be a year.
Right.
But don't forget too that he also said the reason they did that is because they were doing 3 episode block structure on the first season. Even though it takes place over a year, there was still a sort of a 3 block structure.
Also, the original pitch was 5 seasons.
Right.
And Tony Gilroy's like, absolutely not.
But to Lacey's point, you were kind of mixing it up, but it does go to show that maybe we could be seeing these first 3 episodes as sort of their own block, and then the next one, like Cassian will probably be in it, but it could be the next 3 focus on Mon Mothma, and the next 3 after that focus on Saw Gerrera, or something like that. I don't know that that's necessarily the case, but I remember him saying they got the 3 block structure for the second season because they were doing 3 block structure in the first season.
John, to James's kind of defense, look at Book of Boba Fett. They had a whole episode where Boba Fett wasn't in it. It was just Mando.
No, I get that.
I mean, we know Andor's in every episode, but these ones seem to be focused on his home planet and these people there.
Mm-hmm.
Now they seem to somewhat be, to some degree, out of the picture. The next one could focus on these group of peoples on this planet. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if this story that Gilroy and team are telling with Andor has the same bop around ability that they laid out for us by the design of The Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett, which really is a cousin to season 2.5 of The Mandalorian, as they called it, which is more serialized, and like we can take this one episode and be its own adventure, sort of like the Clone Wars. What'd you say?
I said I love cereal. Fruit Loops,
of course.
Fruity Pebbles, Cocoa Pebbles.
Is your favorite cereal called Low Hanging Fruit? Just curious. Like that joke, but yeah, I like it. There's not much else to say about it. I dig it. I dig Tony Gilroy. I'm the president of his fan club, as everyone knows, and I can wait 2 years, because I'm sure after these 12 episodes, I'm gonna be like exhausted, but in a good way, and probably need a little breather.
So Lacey, you were kind of alluding to how he was saying in these statements, like, by the time I'm done, I'll have my hands on 26 hours of Star Wars content. I'll be a player by the time we finish. This is me sticking around right now, and I think that's the headline. So what are your thoughts on Tony Gilroy and his comments here? I guess sort of pre that leak or whatever, but where he's going.
I find it funny that Tony was like, "That's your headline. Go with that. I'm giving it to you. Here you go."
Yeah, and then
it's just like so on
right
par with who he is and who we've come to know through these interactions and like celebration and everything. Is like he's very straightforward. He's not doing anything, mincing words, not telling you something. Like he's just telling you how it is. He doesn't see like the kind of secrecy, like, oh, I don't know, maybe NDA, what, huh, who said that, or Liam Neeson style being like, what is Star Wars?
Oh, what a horrible liar.
It was pretty bad. No, I appreciate him being honest. I agree. I think, after doing this for now, 4 years? It's going to be a total of like 6 years he's been working on this project. At the end, with 26 hours with Star Wars, that's pretty nuts. That is a long chunk of time.
Is that math right?
Yeah, because they announced it in 2018.
No, the hours.
I don't know. He said 26 in his interview, so I'm just going by what he said.
Yeah, he said 26 he'll have his hands on 26 hours of Star Wars content. I think that's
I didn't mean
also...
to step in on your time, Lacey. I just when I heard 26 hours, I'm thinking, is he saying 2 hours for Rogue One and then an hour for each of these episodes, which is not the case?
Yeah, I that's what I would suspect that he was saying. Well, we've got 12-hour long episodes, and then that 2 seasons, that's 24 hours plus Rogue One, that's 26 hours. And also, too, I think that 6 years is you're saying that's based on when Rogue One came out?
So Cassian
or the beginning of
Andor himself, Diego Luna, put out a tweet talking about how in 2018 he had heard that they wanted to do Cassian Andor again, and now this is today is as in the premiere of the episode when this tweet was posted, is the show of that work, that effort, and that time of getting back to that character. So that's 4 years, and now you have 2 more years. I can do simple math. I'm terrible at math, but I can do simple. So 4, 2, 6.
And then with Rogue One, that's like 9 years with Cassian for him.
Again, a big chunk of time. And I think that's where we keep coming back to with these Star Wars projects, and where Kathleen Kennedy and Lucasfilm's having trouble is like, you have to find those people that are willing to dedicate a decade of their life to your franchise and your property and your characters, because that's what they're getting into. But yeah, no, I mean, I appreciate Tony's comments. I can't wait to see what else through this whole season, and I'm sure into the next season, what kind of interviews we'll get with him. Tony, you want to come on the show? We'd love to have you. Yeah. That's it.
I was going to say too, John, and maybe I missed this, so if you did already talk about this, maybe we can move past it. But to clarify really quick, he says we'll shoot from November, being November 2023, to August 2024. Does that sound like if they're done shooting, like they wrap, it's a wrap and it's August 31st, is that coming out in 2024? That seems like it could
shooting in 2 months.
I said they were gonna. They're starting this November. Yeah.
This November.
And then they're done,
and then
a year of post production is what I had said. Yeah.
Yep. So
you're gonna get a little.
I was sitting there like, how does that wrap in August?
At Celebration in April for season 2.
Right.
You're gonna get that Andor sizzle.
I could see that, because we'll have we just got finished the whole season. Wasn't that
it's
great?
Gonna be like a behind
We're gonna
the
give you a
scenes
sneak
thing.
peek into. I don't know. That seems really far in advance still, to be honest with you. Every time
And
we
you're gonna
think we're going to get something
in that sizzle reel.
Every time we think we're getting something at Celebration, they're only focused on like the next 4 months.
I know. I have 2 pies to show for it, one of which was sitting in a fridge in California and never even got shoved in my face.
Congratulations to that housekeeper or whatever.
Congratulations! It sat in the fridge for like a week.
There's no way anybody ate that.
Yeah, they threw it out.
Yeah, you don't walk into a hotel room, find food, and go, all right, but this is good.
don't yeah. Don't forget, I may or may not have been kidding, but don't forget that they're filming in the UK. Celebration's going to be in England.
They're definitely
can-
going to have stuff to show this year or this.
They're going to
coming-
hop over.
Yeah.
They're coming to Celebration. Andor's coming. Like Gilroy will be there. Diego Luna will be there. That's a 100%
Acolyte
That's a good
too.
point. That is a good point.
Yeah.
And Skeleton Crew.
And
as
Skeleton
we just,
Crew, yep.
Yeah, discussed. All right, guys, let's talk about Hasbro. We're actually going to talk
Hasbro.
a lot about toys on this episode, as I'm sort of foreshadowing. But Hasbro was revealing a new Ahsoka, Mandalorian, and Grogu Black Series figure 3-pack. This is pretty cool, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, is this the first time we've seen this version of Ahsoka in a Black Series figure?
Yeah, it's
Lacey?
the Rosario Dawson version of
Yeah.
Ahsoka from the show, and it comes in a 3-pack box. It's super
Mhm.
cool. It has really nice art of her with Grogu with her face touching his forehead, which is like one of the cute pictures from that episode. But yeah, she's donning her attire from Mandalorian, and it comes with him, her, and Grogu. I immediately purchased one because I loved this episode of The Mandalorian. And I also purchased an extra for TRB because we're going to give one away eventually.
Boom.
Enjoy.
Look at that.
It doesn't come out until January, so it'll be for Mando Fan Show when February rolls around.
Yeah, so it'll be a surprise. Everyone will be like, "That's right. I remember they said they bought one."
And do you know how much it costs?
Is this a joke? Because I don't really like
Yeah,
saying pricing.
definitely a joke.
$66.
It does.
Is it really?
It
Like
does
as
cost,
an order 66?
It does cost $66. Yes.
Palpatine.
$66.99 no less, which is another 66 upside down.
Right. Yeah.
You
give a penny
got
for
order
your thought.
66 backwards, forwards, upside down.
But I
Somehow
mean,
Palpatine always returns.
I saw a
Yeah.
lot of people commenting online of like sighing, like I just did, about how it's another Mandalorian toy, and I couldn't, say that enough. I'm still waiting for a Ben Solo, but they have made, I think at this point, it's like 10 to 15 versions of the Mandalorian, like different coloring, different helmet,
Yeah.
different armor, one with the Darksaber, one with Grogu, one. It's like they're just using that mold over and over and over again. So I know a lot of toy collectors were kind of just like, another one. But the fact that this came with Ahsoka, I was like, I can't say no.
That's the solid point for me. But the other thing too is like, as much as I want to argue that point of like, can't you make anything other than Mandalorian? Is every time they announce a Mandalorian figure from any company, I look at it and go, man, that's cool. I want
And
that.
it sells out. It always sells out. So
Yeah.
if you're responsible, which Hasbro was, if your Star Wars line is responsible for saving that company during 2020, during the pandemic, and like they made that company have profits during that year, they're going to keep pushing that stuff out, which is Mandalorian. I mean, look at their HasLabs. They did Jabba's Sail Barge, which was a success. Then they did the Razor Crest, which killed it. And then they moved away from that and did something different, and it didn't do as well. Because the Mandalorian is where a lot of people are spending their money now, and in that specific Black Series product line. However, they do have HasCon coming up, I believe, on October 1st, which they're supposed to announce new products, what's coming, stuff like that. So we should get more stuff, but I'm assuming we'll probably get more Mandalorian.
Yeah. I mean, the point here being that they're advertising this as a 3-pack.
Mm-hmm.
It's a 2-pack with an accessory. Come on here. Like that little baby Grogu just sitting there. Like it is funny to even look at the box art because it's like, oh, Mando, Ahsoka, oh, that looks really cool. And then you see like one little dot in the middle of this black mass. It's,
well, you ever buy the 3.75 scale like Yoda figure?
no,
Like
but
they
it's
charge
similar.
They would charge just as much as any of the other figures, and it's just
The
this little
vintage
dude.
collection, yeah, is 3.75, yeah.
And I get it.
Well,
I
the Power of
get
the
it,
Force from the
obviously.
90s.
Oh, I'm talking about currently.
Yeah.
I think what would have been really cool is to put this as a 2-pack, Grogu and Mando, and then like Ahsoka and R2 or something.
I'm sure Ahsoka's
Is-
going to have her own box eventually. They're just doing this to get it out. first.
No, I know.
Not
I'm
to-
just looking at the 3-pack thing and the way that they're visually stylizing like one character, then like the little one in the middle as the third.
Yeah.
Not to go on a tangent, but because I like my first figures that I bought were the Power of the Force stuff from the 90s. Is like what's the current like 3.75? Is it the vintage
collection?
So even if it's like, do they make new character figures, but it's still called vintage collection?
Yes,
like
because and that's a super popular line actually.
Because
that was
Black
always
Series
a
is 6-inch.
3.75.
Yeah, because the idea of it is vintage, not that the characters who came out.
Well, it's
are
also
vintage,
cheaper, right?
They also come. I don't know if they're cheaper. They just
They
come
are
in.
cheaper.
They come in the soft card box compared
Yeah.
to the hard kind of
Good.
Black Series box, which now Hasbro has. The big drama is Hasbro has switched to like a windowless box.
Yeah.
And people have been tearing them apart in stores and stealing stuff out of the boxes and then leaving the boxes because there's no window.
Oh.
Yeah, it's been this whole drama. So I'm interested to see if they talk about it all coming up on HasCon.
All right.
Yeah, it's interesting, John, because there was a while there where I like when Star Wars first got back in The Force Awakens and all that stuff, and I was like, oh man, Black Series are cool. I kind of want to like collect these and stuff. And obviously, like the money was just like, I can't do this, right? And then I started looking at like the smaller figures, and I was like, those seem a lot more reasonable.
Dude.
Like, those are only like $8 or $10 or something, and yeah, they're not as detailed or whatever. But to me, like if you were to just say like you look at an action figure and you're like, I have a Captain Phasma action figure. I don't care if it's this big or this big. It's gonna be. I have the Captain Phasma
Dude,
action figure.
I'm telling
you, know?
you, when you would go to like KB stores, I don't know if those are like national, but KB Toys or Toys R Us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Vintage
It was- the
collection
power-
is $15, $14.99.
That's a lot. I'm sorry. That is a
Hasbro
lot.
yeah.
Vintage Collection Clone Trooper,
Did they used to be cheaper?
$17.99.
Dude, the power I know it was like a long time ago, but the Power of the Force figures, like you could, if you found it like them on a deal retail, you can get them for like $3.99 or $4.99 a pop. You go to the store with $40, you're walking out with 7 to 8 figures.
Yeah, the Navarro Vintage Collection like world building Cantina set is $52.
Wait, is
I
that
think
the 3.75?
Yep.
Are we talking about the same thing?
Vintage
Okay.
Collection is 3.75. Yeah.
They're clearly steering towards collectors and not kids to just play
Oh,
with toys.
Absolutely.
They need to go back to making the 3.75s for kids to be able to buy and play with Star Wars figures. Like, enough of this. Like, I don't care if this 60-year-old dude has a pristine box on his wall that costs $75.
Yeah, they're
Let a
about
kid play with a toy.
They're about like $15. If you want like an Afra, Dr. Afra, that's $36.
Oh, get the hell out of here.
Star
Oh,
Wars Mission
God.
Fleet Boba ship, which is like the little ones with the little Boba that goes in it, $45.
Well, but you're looking at like what people will pay for like the rare ones or whatever.
No, I'm just looking
Like-
at general prices. Vintage Collection Boba Fett Starship on Hasbro Plus, that's their website, is $200.
I have nothing more to say about it.
Vintage Collection
I-
Riva on Newegg, which is not really a reseller site, it's just Newegg, is $17.
I mean, that's a reseller site.
Walmart, $14.
But Walmart is weird too because they also you can be a seller on Walmart.
James, I've sat in so many Hasbro things. I'm telling you, they're like $15 for a vintage collection at this point. I'm not saying that
I'm not arguing the $15 one. I'm arguing when you say like this one's $17, this one's $40, this one's $200.
I was
I'm
saying
like,
to
well,
the
those
point.
are obviously weird.
I understand that, but I was saying that to the point of
Anomaly.
John saying it's expensive to be a collector. It absolutely is, 100%.
I thought you were saying this to the point of like this is what they're charging and kids can't get a hold of them.
I mean, kids can't get a hold of them, but they are $15 usually to start.
$15 is it. It was a little bit higher than I thought, but I believed that. But you were, but I was reacting to
All right,
some of those other
let's
higher
move on.
numbers.
Yeah.
Well, there's not really much else to go from there because that is really the last story that we have for Resistance Report this week. I can hand it back to you, Lacey, if you want to take us into the Patreon pod race.
Sure. So, guys, it is time for the Patreon pod race. So there are lots of ways you can support us. You can like this video, comment, subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts. Please leave a review. We love hearing from you. It helps us be seen. Give us a rating. It's really, really nice of you. You can follow us on Twitter at RBATSWNN or on Instagram at The Resistance Broadcast. We're also on Facebook, and we're trying to get those audiences up and share more stuff on those platforms as well. But if you want to be a part of the Resistance and support what we're doing here and what our dreams and goals and accomplishments are to be, you can head over to patreon.com/resistance broadcast. We just did a huge update on the page with a bunch of new content ideas and cool perks starting at $5 a month. That's it. You get access to the page and you get to be a part of the show. So with that tier, you get to give your ideas for the show, you get to engage with us, take part in polls, and much, much more. And as you go up in the ranks, you get more cool things like Discord access, game nights, live streams, watch-alongs with us, exclusive merch, and much more. This is the part of the show that our generals and spice runners get to take part. We ask them a question, they give us an answer. This is also one of the perks if you go up in certain tiers. So before I get into who we have doing the pod race this week and the question, I'm going to thank those people. So thank you to our generals, Carmelo, John Reese, Jetta Rosewater, Frank Grande, Darth Hurricane, Nick Kratz, Christian Morales, Brian Smith, Matt Chitty, Danny, Mike Rumore, Matt Heath, Chris White, Brendan McLaughlin, Count Pepto, Samuel Zilke, Sneaky Zebra, and Val Trichkoff. Thank you guys so much for supporting us.
Thank you.
And to our Spice Runners, David Probus, Neil Shaw, Kendall Gellner, Ryan Wara, Dave Hornack, Thomas Hennessy, Andrew Staley, Jeremy Myers, and Michael Fry. Thank you guys so much for keeping it spicy.
Thank you.
And this week, we have Mike Rumore.
Mike!
What up, Mike?
There's Mike.
His question this week was, if you had to choose one approach out of these two, would you prefer future Star Wars movies were one-offs that tell a complete unconnected story in one film, or trilogy/series of films that could continue a story thread? Mike, take it away.
What is up, TRB family? And thanks for the great question, especially coming off of Monday's episode. I think that Lucasfilm is having an issue with series of movies because they're trying to lock creators down for 10, 15 years. And I don't think the creators want to do that. They want to come in, tell a story, and get out. And if one of those stories in that series goes bad, it can affect the other movies. So instead, let's do 5 or 6 $300 million one-shots and explore different genres and different areas of the universe. And you never know which one of those stories may hit big with fandom. And then you can deep dive and explore in that area more because you know what's going to hit. So I pick one-shots over series. But I also want to pose a question back to you is Lucasfilm only has so many employees. So how many movies do you think they can actively work on at one time and still produce quality content? That's it for me, John James Lacey, the rest of the TRB community. May the force be with you.
Awesome job, Mike. It's great to have you on the show. I remember when I reached out to you to take part, you were like, it's my turn already? I was like, yeah, it is. All right, John, what'd you think?
I feel like next time Mike's up on the pod race, we should have him give his answer while drumming. That's what I think. I like the color of your drum set. It looks very TRB, if I might say so myself. Very orange. Dude, yeah, I mean, you made a great answer. And I know you pitched a question back to us, but first I'll just say, like, I like what you're saying in terms of reading the climate of like Lucasfilm, the state of their movies. They are having a hard time bringing people in long term. So you saying like one-offs, and then if those wind up being successful, then maybe branch out from there. Don't put the cart before the horse. Let's see how things perform. I think that's a good idea, man. I am, partial to trilogies. I like that stuff. I like the beginning, middle, and end. But maybe times are changing. Maybe the saga stuff is done for a while. So I think you made a great answer. And then in terms of the question you pitched to us, my take on it, you said Lucasfilm has only so many employees. How many movies could they work on at one time and still produce quality films? I think they could still do.
Marvel's doing how many a year?
Yeah, I think they could still do it, especially they do contract a lot of people. Like, not everyone works for Lucasfilm who works on these movies, whether it's, art people or even special effects. They bring in, third-party companies to help ILM. So, which they did recently with Corridor Crew and others for stuff on Mandalorian.
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
I
Wait,
don't
they
think it's
brought in
just
Corridor Crew?
or whoever that guy was who did the deepfake or whatever his name was.
Oh yeah, he's not with Corridor Crew. No.
But they did bring in
But you're
another
right, yeah.
visual effects team for other stuff on the Mandalorian. So I don't think it's just, oh, well, Lucasfilm's only this big. So they do a lot of contractor work and a lot of outsourcing for certain stuff. So I think they would have no problem with that. But great answer, man. It's always good to hear from you. Good to see you. And I'll see you in the chats, man.
James?
Yeah. Spot on with the answer to Mike, your question back to us. That's probably very accurate. And I think that, speaking of very accurate, Mike, you are dead on this. I think this is exactly where we're at. I think right now we're kind of in a tough spot because we're looking at like what we want Lucasfilm to do, and it's like they're doing that, but it always has problems. Like, it's always like, we're going to tell the story that you've been picturing in your head for 40 years, and it's not going to live up to your expectations. Or we're going to tell one story and then tell you the other half of it later, 2 years later, after you've built up all your expectations, and it's not going to live up to what you're going for, or to what you thought it was going to be. I think what really is going to work is sort of taking that Rogue One approach, or in some cases kind of the Solo approach too, even though Solo also has his own thing with it. But I feel like what is really good is tell a story, people will watch it, and then you get them involved, and then what you want to leave audiences doing is go, give me more of that. And I think that's partially one of the reasons why they're maybe not approaching Solo, is because they still want Solo 2, that is, because they still want a rabid fan base going, we want more of your property, Lucasfilm. They want us cheering for that stuff. They like that rather than like the bad side of it. So it's better for them to put out a good piece of single property and not come back to it, or just kind of let it exist on its own, than it is to try to stretch out a story or tell this another part to a story that we've been making up for years using these legacy characters and stuff. They should still be doing that, don't get me wrong, but I'm saying, like, if it's one or the other, I'm also going to lean on it should be just tell one-off stories that are complete and they live in Star Wars world, and we can have those fans and these fans and these fans and just kind of live in our own pockets, rather than saying, we're going to try to unite everybody under one banner by doing this one huge trilogy or whatever. And then just have people argue over it all the time. So I don't know. I think that's a very solid answer, Mike. You're always great. We need to talk drums, by the way, sometimes. So thanks for doing the pod race.
Mike, great answer. I absolutely agree with you that I think it should be one-offs. I think, unfortunately, Star Wars as a franchise has been chasing the idea of setting a story up into 3 parts from the beginning. And what people seem to forget oftentimes is the 3-part story of Star Wars was not easygoing. It was kind of messy. And it succeeded against kind of the odds of it not succeeding. So I'm on the kind of thought of doing these individual stories and seeing where it goes and giving people the chance to tell a complete story in one sitting. Like, not leaving it to, hey, I'll tell that later. Like, finish the story. And then, hey, if there's more to be told, we can then branch out. And I think that's why people tend to go back to like a Rogue One or a Solo, because even though we do love Solo and obviously make Solo 2 happen, we want more Solo, you could look at Solo as a story. As it is what it is. It ends in a good place and you move on. Same with Rogue One. Now they're telling more of Rogue One and we're all about it. But did we need that story? No, but we wanted it. And I think that they're falling too much into we need multiple stories. We need 3 all at once to tell this full story, when it's like, okay, well, why don't you just start with 1 and then grow from there? So basically, I agree with you. Thank you so much. You're the best. Go ahead, John.
Back to you.
That's how you lay it off?
Back to you, John. I said go ahead.
Go ahead, John. Go ahead. We're not done. So for those of you who love us so much, I have good news for you. We are doing another segment. Now, James, should I do this or do you want to do double duty today?
No,
John,
go ahead,
I
John.
can hand it off to you. Yeah.
All right. So we're doing One with the Force.
The Force is with me, and I'm one with the Force.
There's Baze Malbus. Spoiling the movie for everybody before it comes out.
Oh my gosh, Lucasfilm lost their minds when that
Did
happened.
I watched that clip again recently. I watched it like 8 times to watch each person's reaction, and Alan Tudyk going like.
I forget what happens. Does he just say that they all die, or does he say his character
he
dies?
dies.
That he does.
That he dies.
Yeah.
And like Matt Martin, everybody were like.
And if you look at Kathleen Kennedy, I'm not trying to, I like Kathleen Kennedy and respect her a lot. It looked like she wasn't even listening because she barely reacts at all. But Alan Tudyk is sitting right next to him, and he's just like. And then the moderator's like, well, I think we've said enough. Let's move on. Oh,
It was
wow,
Gwendolyn
that was a good
Christie,
one.
I think.
Oh, was it?
Mhm.
Oh, man, I miss her so much.
Yeah, she's fabulous.
They got to bring her back in one of those future Thrones
She's
shows
in
or
the
something.
new Wednesday Addams show.
Oh, cool.
pretty
All
sure.
right, I gotta check that out. Yeah, I like the girl in that too. She was good in the new Scream movie.
Mm-hmm.
All right, here we go. One with the Force. We're gonna kick it off with our first question. So, it is. Oh, and if you're new to the show for whatever reason, this segment basically you have to choose just one, and we try to make it a difficult choice.
I struggle with
which
this
makes it fun.
one.
Yes. So here we go. The first one. Who is the one new character from Andor that intrigues you the most? Lacey, you're going first.
Ladies first. I'm gonna pick Bix. I think she is super interesting. She has her dynamic and chemistry with Cassian adds this new kind of layer to the story. We've seen her go through so many different situations and emotions in those first 3 episodes that I can't wait to see where her relationship with this Stellan Skarsgård character, which I keep blanking on his name. What's his name?
Luthen.
Luthen. Thank you. His normal name is so cool and so Star Warsy that I just want to be like, yeah, Stellan Skarsgård. His whole relation to her and like being the guy that she calls was such a surprise to me and such an interesting kind of twist that I really can't wait to see where her character goes.
All right. I like that pick. James, how about you?
Cyril Karn.
Me too.
Really?
Yeah.
So and maybe for the same reason, so tell me if we're on the same page here. I feel like I'm interested in all the characters because I'm interested to see where they go as the character that they've brought forth in the first 3 episodes. Like a Cassian, or let's say Bix, for instance, like Bix character, I get her. I want to see where that character goes. I'm very excited about that, but I think I know what she's all about. Cyril Karn, I do not know what he's all about.
Exactly.
He feels so much like a mystery to me where I'm like, I don't know if this guy's going to like become a rebel or if this guy's going to like lose his mind and be the most like focused. He can't live his life unless he gets Andor,
Yeah.
And he's just going to chase him and chase him and chase him. And he's always going to lose and he'll end in travesty. I don't know. He has such a wide open gamut or wide open range of where his character could develop to that he's the mystery to me.
Yeah.
The other character I really forgot to mention was the Clea character from the trailer who's like with the red hood.
Right.
Oh, right.
I can't wait to
forgot
see
about
her.
that.
She works with Luthen, so I'm interested to see what
Mm-hmm.
her role is.
And do we have a character? Even if we had a name, it wouldn't answer the question, but we didn't talk about this on the show, but we on TRB Live, but there's this whole setup of like, he's looking for his sister.
You're right.
Yeah.
And that's going to be like an overarching thing for season 1 and possibly season 2. But like, how is his sister involved?
Maybe that's the sister.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. Is she might actually be someone like maybe she was picked up by a different group of people and she grew up in the political landscape, sort of like reflecting
Since she was 5 years old.
yeah, sort of reflecting the Leia who was raised in royalty, and Cassian who was raised in the poverty sort of situation.
It's possible. Maybe we'll find out on Wednesday. But yeah, I mean, you can't have a wrong pick here. I think Bix is a great pick because we really don't know where her character is going. She could pull Akira and break Cassian's heart. We don't. So I think that's a great pick. But I got to go with Cyril also for the reasons I gave on TRB Live. And maybe I was wrong in how I read this guy, but he just seems like he's in this spot because he was sort of born into it, sort of like how princes become kings, but maybe they're not good leaders. It's just and he's trying to prove himself, and he seems to not have the confidence. And he's the one where the biggest question mark. I'm like, I don't know where that guy's end game is. So where everyone else, I feel like I might have an idea. That guy, I'm like, I don't know, and I like what I see so far. All right. Our next one. Which out of The Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, and Obi-Wan would have benefited most if it was produced the same way as Andor with more elaborate sets and on-location filming? James, you're kicking this one off.
I'm gonna go with Obi-Wan Kenobi. I think that Book of Boba Fett probably could have as well, but there was something about that to me that just felt like it was part of Mandalorian. And even when the production sort of limped along in some places, I was like, this is all fine though. I sort of expected a little bit more out of Obi-Wan, and I think there was sort of I don't want to say like a backlash, but sort of an awareness of where did all the budget go on Obi-Wan? I can see that it's not all totally there, and you would have thought this is the one where they would have really went and spent all the money. And then it's oddly enough, it seems like a lot of that was in Andor. I don't know what actual cost is, but it seems like all the production is on Andor. So I'm going to go with Obi-Wan was the one that I felt like should have probably felt a little more elevated than it was.
Okay, right on. How about you, Lacey?
So I agree with James completely. I feel like Obi-Wan Kenobi's sets felt really small and really enclosed, and everything was very brown. It wasn't very... It right? His robes brown. Desert's brown.
That's exactly it's a perfect observation of everything.
Just a big UPS
Why
truck.
is everything brown? And I'm like, it was brown.
It just, I don't know. It just felt like even the on location shots of them in that construction yard with the gravel, it just felt very much where are they? They're clearly in a parking lot somewhere. That's not the set we got in Andor, which they're interacting with these spaces and they have doors and everything is just bigger.
Watching the Andor trailer while watching Obi-Wan at the same time makes me feel like Rey saying I didn't know there was this much green in the whole galaxy.
Right. But for the sake of being a little different, I would say The Mandalorian. I love The Mandalorian. I love what they've done, but come on. If you're saying you're going to stick The Mandalorian in Iceland, it's going to be a beautiful, beautiful show. So
Yeah.
I'd say Mandalorian.
And it's interesting because at least in the footage we've seen so far, Mando season 3 does look bigger.
Yes.
But we know they did film in SoCal again. So
and they have been doing elaborate sets. Again, I go back to it, but the Jedi episode where Ahsoka's fighting in that big kind of water house area. It's
that was cool.
Intense. Or the ship was an actual ship with the Mandalorian.
We're going 3 for 3 here, and maybe this is how most fans feel. I'm not sure. But
well, she said Mandalorian. I said Obi-Wan, right?
I said Obi-Wan first.
But she did say Obi-Wan first and gave good reasons, and then just said, I'm going to pick another one. But to both of your points about Obi-Wan, I agree. Very brown, very claustrophobic. I loved Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I thought it got better as it went on, especially as we found out John Williams allowed his music to be incorporated in the final 2 episodes, which was interesting, revealed by the composer Natalie Holt.
Mm-hmm.
because as we were watching that, we were like, how come they're not using like the Force theme and stuff? And now we know.
Did you
TRB
notice
exclusive.
in the documentary that was on Disney Plus, they show the scene of them
Oh my god, I haven't
filming
watched that
the
yet.
final. Oh, really? Oh, yeah. We need to do something with that. But
My bad.
the scene where they're fighting, you can tell that you can hear on set they were playing Duel of Fates.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So they set them up like that. That was the headspace they were in. And it ended up being a different song. But then all the fans came along and was like, I rescored Kenobi, you know?
I wouldn't want them fighting to Duel of the Fates. That's not Obi-Wan and Anakin's song. Battle of the Heroes is Anakin and Obi-Wan's song. Duel of the Fates is Qui-Gon, Maul, and Obi-Wan over the fate of Anakin. It's not Obi-Wan versus Anakin. So
And also Anakin.
I'm glad they didn't.
And also Anakin riding a bike.
Yeah, Anakin riding a bike. So yeah, for me, Obi-Wan, I do feel like there was something missing, and that could have been grander. The Alderaan stuff was great. Everything, however they did the Alderaan stuff, I thought was perfect. If the rest of the series felt and looked like that, thumbs up from me. So I would have picked Obi-Wan. Would have benefited the most from more elaborate sets and on-location filming. Now, one more here, little fun one, probably a quick answer. Lacey, pick one Star Wars toy, figure, etc. in that realm pre-2000 that you would love to see remade today with the latest technology and capabilities that we see collectibles and figures made with.
Oh my gosh, this is a tough one. I didn't think about this beforehand. I probably should have.
Do you want me to come back to you?
Yes, please.
All right, I'm going to go first if that's okay.
Please do, because I also have a complicated answer.
Okay. Mine is the Millennium Falcon. I have two. The Power of the Force Millennium Falcon. I gave one to my nephews years ago, not realizing like I may have a kid one day. Now I have a kid. I had to go buy another one, so it's up in the attic until Johnny's responsible enough to handle all of it. But I was thinking like they can make it today, maybe a little more expensive, but put like an LED in the back for the blue afterburner. Do like maybe more intricate things with the cockpit. They can really do a lot of things now with how they make these figures with the Millennium Falcon. I'm not saying make it a $500 thing, but if it's like $150 or whatever, and you up it a little bit from what it was back when it was like a $50 toy with Power of the Force, I think you can make a really cool Falcon that's moderately affordable for someone who wants to buy a big ship like that for the vintage collection 3.75 figures. So if you think about what they do with some stuff today,
They did though.
They
They made the Galaxy's Edge version of it.
They did?
Mm-hmm.
So this was part of my confusion on the question. Is I was like, well, what toy haven't they remade in using today's technology?
So Vintage
I'm like,
Collection, they made the
Luke's,
Kessel Run
all the
version
ships.
from Galaxy's Edge. It came in the play box, everything.
Oh, I didn't know that. Well, then there you go. And it's $700? How much is it?
It wasn't originally $700. It was, I think, $149 was the price point, I believe.
Oh.
which is
price I
exactly
just
what
said.
John just said.
Yeah. All right, well, never mind. All right. Well, if this question is not working out, we can just hop out of
I
here.
think it's a good question. I just honestly didn't give it a lot of time.
So
I always go back to that Polly Pocket that I had when I was little. Like, I'd love more
Oh,
Polly
yeah.
Pocket type stuff with Star Wars. Like, smaller, I guess, branching outside of the normal action figure stuff. Yeah. Like, we don't have a lot of, like, the weird stuff. Like, the weird, or Happy Meal toys. We had, like, no Happy Meal toys.
Well, they did Happy Meal toys, but like for some reason, I always feel like the Happy Meal toys that are tied in with movies really suck now.
They're always
because
like
they
a
just,
keychain.
Yeah, or something like you push the button and it like has like a character show up or something.
It turns
like
on.
a
It's
little
a light,
hologram or
yeah.
something, a light or something. Yeah.
I have a
And I'm
box,
like,
by
I
the way,
want
of
a toy that plays.
I have a
you know?
box that I bought off eBay years ago of like legit like 50 Taco Bell unopened toys from Star Wars, and I was like, I should just sit down one day and just open them all.
I just can't even imagine like make these things really, really super crappy, like really bad, but then have like 50 Star Wars characters toys And I will be at McDonald's every single day trying to collect those action figures.
People go for Pokemon cards, yeah.
I mean, even with Bennett, like when they do Disney stuff, I go to McDonald's and we'll say like, what toys do you have? Like, I'm here to buy just the toys. Like, I've done that. But like for Star Wars, it would be for me. You know, I would be interested in, but anyone they've released so far, I've not been interested in. That's really the key there with this question, Lacey, is I was so stuck on action figures and vehicles and play sets that I'm like, I don't know, man. There was like a trash compactor scene from, you know, I'm sure like when the movie came out, you know, but it's like all those characters and that scene and the Dianoga and all that stuff have all been redone in today's age. So I'm not really sure what to go with. So my answer was and I don't even know. I don't know toy lines enough to know if this was pre-2000s or not, but I remember the Buff era.
It is pre-2000. That's 90s.
So the Buff era of Star Wars, where they had the toys where it was like big buff Luke Skywalker and stuff. I was like, if they brought those toys back and it was like buff
Kylo Ren,
buff Ahsoka, buff Kylo Ren, yeah, or buff like all weird ones that clearly for some reason don't even sort of fit in any sort of canon or seriousness, but they're just like weird macho toys or something. I don't know. I thought that would be really fun, and I would love to see every one of them. I'd be, you know, you get a screenshot and you scroll to the next one, you're like, that one's ridiculous. Oh, this next one's ridiculous.
John, your answer was a good answer. They just already made it.
I didn't know they made did they soup it up like I'm saying with the LED lights and stuff?
Probably. I can't imagine it's using the 80s technology.
All right, so now I have to go to eBay and buy one for like $5,000.
Good luck. Good luck finding one of those. Those are hard to find.
All right. Well, this backfired.
You got yours.
I'm ready to end the show. Are you guys ready to end the show?
Yeah.
All right. Thanks everybody for listening and watching and being a part of TRB. Make sure you subscribe to the show. Like Lacey said, whether it's an audio platform or the YouTube channel, because we are going live every Wednesday up until like Thanksgiving. So be sure to
John's
join us.
John's birthday's in like a month, less than a month.
It is. I'm not looking forward to it. But and like Lacey said, please do rate us because we are almost at 350 ratings on Spotify. I don't know where that ranks us with other Star Wars podcasts. I believe it's one of the top ones. So keep going, and we appreciate that support. Star Wars Newsnet, of course, for your Star Wars news from the fan perspective. And you could find me on Twitter at Johnny Hoey, writing and editing at StarWarsNewsNet.com. And my movie podcast. I talk about movies that are not Star Wars, called Just Like the Movies. We just did an episode on Mission Impossible, the first one, and our next movie is going to be Raiders of the Lost Ark. Very excited. Lacey, let's go to you.
People can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Lacey Gillerin.
JB.
You can find me both on Twitter and Instagram at Myra Trunks.
All right, that is going to do it for us. Good news for you. You get to see us sooner than normal because we're going to see you Wednesday night, live, 9 p.m., as we talk about Andor Episode 4. So enjoy the next couple of days, and we'll see you right here on the Resistance broadcast. See you around, kids.